Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today, we will discuss about America's decision to pull out troops from Afghanistan by September. Afghanistan is at a critical juncture of history once again. After a lot of thinking, US President Joe Biden has finally decided to pull out all the American troops from the war-torn country by September. This decision comes amidst hardening of stance by the Taliban regarding the process underway to usher in peace in the country. India is watching closely as the developments in Afghanistan have repercussions. So in the agenda today, we will discuss this issue. We have with us retired diplomat Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, retired Major General Ashwani Sivaj, and from Afghanistan we are joined by senior journalist and head of Pasbhanan Media Group, Sher Shah Nawabi. But before we start our conversation, have a look at this small report.
US President Joe Biden has decided to pull out all American troops from war-torn Afghanistan by 11th September this year, which is the anniversary of the unprecedented terror attacks in New York and Washington. The deadline exceeds the first May timeline set by his predecessor, Donald Trump, under a deal signed with the Taliban on February 29 last year. Biden's decision, contours of which are expected to be unveiled by President himself shortly, comes weeks after saying that the deal struck by the Trump administration with the Taliban was faulty. It also goes against the view of the US Defense Department, which favored continued presence of American troops in Afghanistan to counter the Taliban, whose aggression has been increasing. The complete withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan will mark the end of the longest war initiated in October 2001 in retaliation to the attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda terrorists at World Trade Center in New York and Pentagon in Washington with flying civilian aircraft. Biden has earlier stated that America has been fighting a long and frustrating war in Afghanistan which does not serve any interest of the US. The exit of the US forces is expected to create a security vacuum in Afghanistan, and there are fears that it will be filled by Taliban, an extremist and radicalized proxy of Pakistan. The Taliban has already increased its military and militant aggression ever since the deal was signed with the US. It is now eyeing power in Kabul, which, if it happens, will eradicate all progress made on democratization of Afghanistan. And going by its past record, Taliban in power would be a nightmare not only for the people of Afghanistan, but also for India and the world at large. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our guests, Ambassador Sajanhar, Major General Sivaj, and Sher Shah Nawabi from Afghanistan. Welcome to all of you to the program. I'll first go to Sher Shah Nawabi about the peace process. Sher Shah, what is the status of the Afghan peace process? And we hear that Taliban is acting tough and playing hardball. Can you give us some details about that?
Thank you so much for giving us opportunity, and I want to say hello to our respected guests in here. As you said, Mr. Cole, currently the last decision which was made last night, and until now there is no official announcement about the withdrawal from US President Joe Biden. But this was breakthrough news for all Afghans, and especially in this situation that we are living, as we have the war currently. The Taliban on one hand is trying to have their readiness for attacking the Afghan security and also making a worse ground in the country. But at the same time, US is, and also its allies in NATO are trying to just leave Afghanistan. So now, according to the situation that you're facing, I believe that Afghanistan is facing a new critical phase, and possibly going to this critical phase may harm Afghanistan because itself we don't have any exact solution from US.
Yes.
Also, the Taliban haven't stopped their war. So this means that we are in a critical situation, and if we don't have any good solution in upcoming 2 or 3 months, especially as the Turkey summit is taking place, so possibly Afghanistan will take face internal wars, and it would create a bigger problem.
Right. So, but as you mentioned about Taliban, Taliban is playing. I mean, sometimes they say they will participate in the Istanbul conference. Sometimes they say we won't. America should leave just now. They can't wait and all that. So, what is the role? What are you suspecting Taliban is playing dirty in this whole game?
Well, from the beginning of Doha summit, they are playing dirty games. And also, as the Afghan government is also facing a stalemate, so President Ghani and also his team don't know what to do, because all the pressures which we are facing in Afghanistan is, unfortunately, the dirty work of Zalmay Khalilzad. So Khalilzad is the main guy who we can blame, because Khalilzad's opportunity decision provide this opportunity to Taliban to play this dirty game, unfortunately. And now also Taliban are still playing a dirty game. So exactly as the world knows, as the Afghans knows, and also as our neighboring countries know, Taliban will never play a peaceful role in Afghanistan. It's full and final, because the last situation the country has shown that Taliban are still puppet, and they are looking to work against Afghan citizens.
Right.
As according to the latest report that was provided by NATO, none of these troops and NATO forces are killed or injured in Afghanistan. But 97% of the war of Taliban is against the Afghan. So they are the puppet, and now they are the people that Pakistan specializing in ISI is now looking to play a double game. So now we are facing a blame Taliban or the exact team that they have just pressurized Afghanistan, and also at the same time they are playing a dirty game with us.
Right. So I'll go to Ambassador Sajanar. Ambassador, you heard what Nawabi Saab was saying about Taliban playing dirty game, and also there is an impression that America is now abandoning Afghan people and Afghan government also, maybe President Ghani also. How do you see this situation?
Yeah, I think both these assessments, in my view, are quite accurate. Because you see, when this whole, the so-called peace deal, although, the more objective commentators and analysts called it a withdrawal plan rather than, a peace deal here.
Right.
It was basically arrived at because Mr. Trump wanted to leave. He was in a great hurry to leave. And he wanted to leave that because the elections were around the corner, and he had given Zalmay Khalilzad 6 months to come to some sort of an agreement so that, he could come to the people, to the electorate in the United States and tell them that he has not only not taken any troops and forces out of the country to fight any war, but he's been able to end the longest war in the history of the United States, and he's been able to get his forces back, his soldiers back.
Right.
So that is the background of the February 29th deal that was signed last year in 2020. And after that, now that we have the government of Mr. Joe Biden, which took office just a few months ago, there is no way that Joe Biden also can sort of, in a very significant manner, change the contours of that agreement for a variety of reasons. The first one is that Joe Biden himself, even when he was the vice president, even earlier, he has always been in favor of the withdrawal of the US forces. Secondly, if he were to extend the presence of the US troops there indefinitely, then this would be known as, a Biden's war, because it would be that Trump was willing to get them back, but Biden had again implicated the American troops. And of course, we have seen that in the past, the US forces in Afghanistan have gone up to the level of even 100, and they have also not been able to bring a peace and tranquility and security in Afghanistan. So, what Mr. Biden can also do is tinker in a little way with the withdrawal plan. That having been said, of course, the Taliban has never been serious about any of its commitments. First, its commitment was, that there should be a reduction in violence, that there should be some sort of a ceasefire that should come there, after which the dialogue with the Afghan government and with the other Afghan civilian society representatives can take place. So there was no, in fact, no peace, no ceasefire, no reduction in violence. Violence increased by 45% last year after the so-called peace deal was signed.
Right.
And secondly, there was no seriousness in engaging in any meaningful conversation with the Afghan government. So that is why you see that, first so many months were spent after February 29th getting about 5,000 Taliban
released.
Taliban forces, their terrorists released from the Afghan custody. And then after that, it started in September, but it has failed to make any headway because of a number of issues and problems that the Taliban has been raising. So they have never been serious. So they really know that America is desperate to leave. It will leave either by the 1st of May or maybe a few months hence. So they are pushing home the advantage, and they want to sort of, put the United States in a corner with the back to the wall so that they can extract the maximum advantage, maximum political capital and leverage out of America. And this is the game plan at the moment.
Right. Right. So, Major General Sivaj, I come to you. As we talked about the Taliban playing dirty and Taliban playing games, and in fact increasing the violence, targeted killings over the last month, 1 year or so. So, is it like, if I see the situation, that Taliban has, although I'll say Pakistan through Taliban has frustrated Americans, because I saw somewhere that President Biden is saying that it's a frustrating war which we are fighting in Afghanistan. So, is that Pakistan through its proxy has frustrated Afghanistan, America?
Absolutely correct, Ajay. See, first of all, when this package was signed between America and Taliban, the Afghan government was not part of it.
Right.
And therefore, from the beginning only, there was a gap in thought process. And then for certain points for issues were having a flaw. Initially, they were to reduce ceasefire.
Gone. But instead of doing that, they came to a conclusion that first the prisoners will be, transferred of both sides, and thereafter reduction in violence, and then basically the Americans will leave before 1st May, and some sort of agreement will be there between the Taliban and the Afghan government. But the basic thing was that Taliban was never very serious. Taliban was never serious in reduction of violence. In fact, after they have signed a pact with the Americans, after prisoners were transferred, the violence level increased. And they were also to make sure that Al-Qaeda and Islamic State does not get the room and the space to operate. But they also did not break any contact with Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda kept on functioning. Now, the point which is there is that the room in the elephant is Pakistan. The Pakistan is not being very serious and sincere in finding a solution, because Pakistan wants a solution which suits them, and they think that the Taliban will come into power because America had no choice but to leave one day and put pressure on America. America will leave, Taliban will come into power, and it will be the best for Pakistan. and they want a one-point agenda that somehow, however, India should not get any sort of leverage in Afghanistan. So that is where it is working out, and that's why things are not working. And it is very well known, Ashraf Ghani, the president of Afghanistan, has time and again said the problem lies in Pakistan. The Taliban are getting sentry there. They are operating from there, and Pakistan is not serious in finding a solution. They are part of a problem. However, Americans are also very much keen to go at the earliest. Of course, Joe Biden administration has taken a slightly correct decision that they have postponed or they're finally leaving Afghanistan from May to 11 September. Rightfully so, because the situation is not totally right. But September is also not too far off. So one has to understand how will they ensure that the violence level in Afghanistan come down? How do we ensure the Taliban is really serious in ensuring the peace in Afghanistan? It should not happen that America leaves Afghanistan and there is a confusion, chaos, and sort of a civil war where Taliban makes use of it. That threat or that warning is there, and that can possible. And in this connection, India has to be very careful because India has invested almost $3 billion in Afghanistan. India has made a parliament house, made number of roads, bridges, railway line. Then it has also invested in Chaba port, from where the railway line is coming towards Kabul and then going to Central Asian state. So having said so, our interest in Afghanistan is of an enormous proportion. And we want that a stable and democratic government should come in Afghanistan. But that chances seemingly looks to be less until and unless every democracy, the world, get together and put pressure on Taliban. Right. As on today, it does seem that Taliban is very sincere in reduction of violence and also ensuring the peace and durability is prevailing in Afghanistan.
Right. We were discussing about how Taliban has been playing dirty, and of course Pakistan's role is key in playing a spoil sport. So Shersha Nawabi, I come to you. We all know, as we discuss, and every objective commentator knows that how Pakistan pulls the strings of Taliban and how it has been wanting Taliban to come to power. So do you think if when Americans leave in September or maybe whenever they leave, so there will be stability after that in Afghanistan, or there will be civil war, because everybody wants Afghanistan to be stable and prosperous? How do you see the situation unwinding?
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Well, actually, what I can say in the current situation is that still everyone is afraid in Afghanistan, because as this game is played by Pakistanis, by Taliban, and also the lack of exact power by the government has caused this problem that we are facing. But one thing that's clear, here Taliban is just a group. Those Taliban who are fighting, they are not Afghan. They are not our brothers, and it's clear. So in case, if we would once again have this situation, the Taliban will like to impose their self on us, then there is no way, because in here we have dozens of the cities that they have given their blood, they have given their head, they have given their hands to achieve this. So for now, it's just a kind of assumption that the Taliban will come to power. Taliban themselves know that there is no gap for them to come to power, because if they would come to power, there is one solution that President Ghani has already told elected. So Taliban knows that the brutality, the acts that they are doing, on that base, no one wants Taliban. Still, we have an expression in our language which says that when something would pressurize you, so you would just begin your fight. Now the Afghans are just facing that situation. Now the Afghans are getting a little bit calm to see what's going on, especially those people who were against the Taliban 21 years, 25 years.
Yeah.
It's the first issue. The second issue is this, that Pakistan now knows that there is no way for them. If they run this proxy war, they will just lose the ground. You know, as much that Pakistan is trying to just launch their proxy war in Afghanistan, the Afghans would just get closer to India. Also, they would get close to the China, because the interests of these countries are combined with each other. So now, the thing that we believe is this, that let's change this game, this bloody game, military war, and economic. And I guess that now this assumption is getting place, because the reason is that now we see Pakistan believes that the peaceful solution. But still, Pakistan army is afraid of the current situation. They are too much afraid, because they know that if they let Taliban go to the peace process, then they would lose the ground. And this is the major issue that Pakistan is trying to just change the game and also influence it. And at the same time, according to my information, currently there are some other proxy wars ongoing. They're planned for this proxy war. Possibly after this, if took place, there would be another group with another flag, and mainly they would just launch their operations in areas which are important to the national interest of Pakistan, the national interest of China, and those countries are playing the proxy war. So this is the exact issue that I want to take in.
So are you trying to say that there will be Pakistan is floating another terror group or another group to capture power in Afghanistan?
Well, yeah. We can say this thing that it took place 100%. But as we see the current situation, and as we see the movements of the terrorist groups, it seems that the group is trying to just transform Taliban. Now they would change the name of Taliban and flag, and another group would come under another name, but mainly it is 100% assured that those Taliban insurgents who are just afraid of this peace, who don't want peace, they will turn to that group. And possibly this formation would be just formed under the Tehrik Taliban Pakistan. As you know that after 20 years or 18 years, once again, TTP is launched. You know, before 2019, TTP was just blocked by the ISAF.
Right.
Now the TTP is just coming in power once. And it seems to me, according to the evidence, it seems to me that possibly this time TTP would take the charge, and possibly Haqqani would come as a partner or as an arm of the group, and they would still just launch their attack on Afghans, and also they would have their safe havens in Afghanistan, especially in those areas which is close border to Pakistan, and those areas that they would be easily give these guys logistics support. It's just a kind of and at the same time the evidence that we have.
Okay. So
the
that
nature of
I mean, then the central point is Pakistan is trying to get control of Afghanistan. So Ambassador Sajanar, briefly before we conclude. So as you heard Shershad Nawabi talking about how Pakistan is trying to create another group or maybe float it, and I mean the idea, his whole entire idea is like Pakistan wants to capture power somehow, either through Taliban or maybe Tehrik-e-Taliban, whatever. What will you say on that?
Well, yes, as far as interest of Pakistan to capture power and to have a complete control over whoever is in authority in Kabul, that cannot be disputed.
Right.
But frankly, I have not heard anything about Pakistan trying to float another group. The reason is that, if they can get the same purpose fulfilled through the Taliban, and there is nothing to suggest to me, at least so far, that Taliban will not do their bidding. because we have seen that Pakistan has projected itself and positioned itself as the only country through which can facilitate dialogue with the Taliban. So,
Right.
whether it is the United States, whether it is Russia, whether it is China, all of them, basically Pakistan has become so much in demand because the countries feel that this is the go-to country from where they can have a conversation, where they can have establish a connection with the Taliban. That is why, because of its geographical position and
Right.
its geopolitical control over Taliban, that it has been able to do this.
Right.
Now, if it feels that Taliban is somehow getting out of its hands, which at the moment does not appear to be likely, but you can never say what happens, because after all, we know that, in the 1970s, it was Khmer Rouge was also created by Vietnam, but then they, started acting against Vietnam.
Yeah.
So you can never say what is going to happen. But at the moment, it does not appear to be so very plausible that Pakistan will float another group which will be in conflict with whatever Taliban is doing.
Maybe parallelly, so last question to Major General Sivach about Pakistan maybe trying to float another group, or maybe parallelly to work through to get power. Brief comments.
Absolutely correct. See, I agree with Ambassador Sajjan Ha. Taliban itself is a property of Pakistan. So Taliban is doing exactly what the Pakistan wanted. The bases of Taliban are in Pakistan. So therefore, they don't need to protect another group. Taliban is doing what Pakistan wants. And it looks like that in time to come, Taliban will be hold the key to the solution, because you see, Pakistan has put itself in such a position as far as Afghanistan is concerned. Now everyone understands the solution of Afghanistan problem is through Pakistan.
Right.
Whether it is US or whether it is Russia.
Yeah,
so therefore, and it is China.
So
the Pakistan plays a very pivotal role, and India has to be very careful in case we want
Right,
to become be a very important aspect, because our involvement is of $3 billion.
Our interests
We
are
have
at
to
stake.
understand.
Yeah, our interests are at stake. But Pakistan is playing its games. But who knows that they may be doing some other, maybe having some other plans. But we have to be watchful and watch out. Thank you all of you for participating in this debate today. This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.